Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Alien Council predicted human defeat. Humans shocked the galaxy in minutes. The Alien High Council gathered in their grand chamber, an awe-inspiring structure floating above the core of their empire's capital world. This was the seat of absolute power in the galaxy, where the most advanced civilizations decided the fate of lesser species. The topic of the day: humanity. A lesser species, barely a blip on the galactic scale, had somehow made waves. The Council had observed them for decades, monitoring their primitive wars and reckless expansion. They were a violent, emotional species, intelligent but not refined like the great empires that ruled the stars. The projections were clear. If humanity continued its reckless expansion, it would inevitably collide with the established order. The Council had seen this before, a young species growing too quickly, reaching beyond its station, only to be put down before it could become a threat. "The simulations are undeniable, Grand Chancellor," Velik intoned, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. "The human species lacks the discipline, the unity, and the technological prowess to challenge us. Within one standard cycle, they will be eradicated." There was murmured agreement among the gathered delegates. The prediction models showed the same thing. War with humanity was inevitable, and its outcome was predetermined. Humanity would struggle, perhaps put up a fight, but ultimately the combined forces of the Council would crush them. But then something happened. An urgent alarm blared through the chamber. The holographic star charts shifted, displaying real-time fleet movements. Council-controlled sectors near the Terran border were under attack. No, not just attacked. Entire fleets had vanished. Vanished? The chamber erupted into chaos. "How is this possible?" demanded an elder from the Vorn Dominion. "Their technology is inferior. Their fleets are barely spaceworthy compared to ours. They shouldn't be able to outmaneuver our defenses." Another growled, his multiple eyes flickering with confusion. Yet the reports were clear. Humanity had done the impossible. In mere minutes, the balance of power had shifted. The aliens had expected a conventional war, a long, drawn-out conflict where superior technology would overwhelm the humans. But they had underestimated them in the worst possible way. Humans didn't fight fair. Instead of massing their fleets for an honorable engagement, they struck in ways no other species had dared to. Sabotage, electronic warfare, precision strikes on command centers. By the time the Council fleets even realized they were at war, half their forces had been neutralized. It wasn't just brute force. It was strategy, ruthless cunning, and utterly without mercy. The most shocking part: humans weren't just winning, they were laughing while doing it. Encrypted human transmissions intercepted by the Council's intelligence division revealed something the aliens could barely comprehend. Jokes, taunts, and war cries filled with an emotion the Council's elite species had long abandoned: excitement. Humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. They were enjoying this. The Grand Chancellor's claws dug into the polished stone table. For the first time in centuries, fear crept into his voice. "We have underestimated them." The Council chamber, once filled with confidence and quiet arrogance, was now consumed by panic. The assembled alien leaders, each representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, had never witnessed anything like this. The reports continued to flood in. A fleet of human warships had bypassed an entire defensive sector by hijacking the Council's own hyperlane network. How? They had cracked the uncrackable encryption of the Council's navigational relays in mere hours. The grand fleet stationed at the edges of human space. Gone. Not destroyed in battle, eliminated before they could even engage. Human strike teams had infiltrated command ships, disabled reactors, and left entire armadas adrift, helpless and blind. "They're not fighting like warriors," a member of the Jari Dominion screeched, his translucent tendrils quivering in fear. "They don't follow the rules of engagement." The Council had always fought wars in a predictable manner: fleet against fleet, army against army, honorably and methodically. But humans, they fought like devils. They disrupted supply lines, turned council technology against its creators, and targeted high-ranking officials with terrifying precision. Council commanders who had never feared anything in their long and luxurious lives now found themselves hunted one by one. The galaxy's finest admirals vanished. Some were eliminated in their own bunkers. Others found their warships inexplicably shut down before a single shot could be fired. And then the worst news arrived. A lone human task force, no, not a task force, a team, had reached the Council's inner sanctum. They had bypassed every layer of defense, slipped through undetectable corridors in hyperspace, and were now on a direct course for the capital world itself. "They cannot have gotten this far," Grand Chancellor Velic whispered, his voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. "They have," came a cold response from his intelligence officer, "and they are broadcasting a message." The chamber fell silent as the transmission was played for all to hear. It wasn't the voice of a formal diplomat, nor a fearful plea for mercy. It was casual, almost amused. A human's voice, deep and confident, spoke through the static. "Hey there, Council big shots. Hope we're not interrupting anything important." The Council's leaders stiffened at the sheer audacity. "We figured you guys were making all these fancy projections about how we'd lose. Thought we'd give you a little reality check." The human's voice shifted, a smirk practically audible through the speakers. "We're not here to negotiate. We're not here to beg. We're here to win." Silence, the transmission cut off, but the meaning was clear. The humans hadn't come to plead for survival. They had come to conquer. The chamber was dead silent. The alien leaders, the so-called rulers of the galaxy, sat frozen in place, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. This wasn't how wars were fought. This wasn't how lesser species behaved. And yet here they were, on the verge of losing everything, not in years or months, but in minutes. Grand Chancellor Velic felt his chest tighten as he turned to his intelligence officer. "Where is our fleet? Where are our reinforcements?" The officer's skin, usually a deep and regal blue, had paled to a sickly shade. His mandibles twitched in distress. The human forces have disabled our long-range communications. We cannot coordinate a defense." Velic's claws dug into the table. "Then our local fleets will handle them. We outnumber the humans. We outgun them." The officer hesitated. "Sir, the human fleet heading toward us isn't large. It consists of only a handful of ships." That stunned the entire chamber. A handful, against the most fortified world in the galaxy, against planetary defense platforms capable of reducing moons to rubble. It had to be a bluff. It had to be some kind of human deception. Velic's voice turned sharp. "Then why are you panicking? Have the orbital defense grids prepare to vaporize them the moment they exit hyperspace." "They already have," the officer said, and yet his eyes flickered towards the central display as a new alert appeared. The humans had arrived. The star chart zoomed in on the system's outer perimeter. True to the reports, only a few ships had made the jump, far too few to mount any meaningful assault. But something was wrong. The planetary defense grid, the most sophisticated in the known galaxy, did not open fire. Instead, the entire system went dark. "What is happening?" Velic snarled. "Why aren't our weapons firing?" "Sir, the intelligence officer was shaking now. "I don't know. Our entire system has been overwritten." Then the chamber's central hologram changed. Instead of displaying fleet positions and defense parameters, it showed something infinitely more terrifying: a single human face. Unlike the grand and imposing figures of the council, he looked utterly unremarkable, short cropped hair, sharp brown eyes, and a relaxed expression that was entirely too confident for someone standing against the galaxy's mightiest empire. When he spoke, it wasn't in a booming, authoritative voice. It was calm, almost casual. "Hello, council members," he smiled. Felix's throat tightened. "My name is Captain David Rains of the Terran Expeditionary Forces." The human tilted his head slightly. "You might be wondering why your planetary defenses aren't working. Well, turns out you guys built everything on a system that's way too easy to hack. We figured that out about 20 minutes ago." A cold wave of horror washed over the council. Their greatest defenses useless, their fleets leaderless, their communications severed. And before you start thinking about sending reinforcements, Rains continued, I'd like to point out that we've already won. Your fleets are cut off, your commanders are missing, and in about 2 minutes your orbital stations are going to realize that they've been turned against you. A pause. Now, he added, his smile widening, we could bomb your capital into the dirt, but that would be a waste of time. Instead, I have a better idea. The entire council chamber leaned forward. We're taking over. Velik couldn't breathe. I suggest you surrender now, the human said, still smiling, or things might get really messy. Panic erupted in the council chamber. Alien dignitaries shouted over one another, their voices laced with fear and disbelief. Some demanded immediate retaliation, others whispered about escape plans. The most powerful beings in the galaxy, who had spent centuries ruling with absolute authority, were now reduced to terrified bureaucrats. Grand Chancellor Velik slammed a clawed hand against the table, silencing the room. His mind raced, trying to process the impossible. This was not how wars were fought, no drawn-out campaigns, no years of brutal conflict. The humans had skipped all of that. They had gone straight for the throat. His gaze snapped back to the holographic display, where Captain David Rains still stared at them, that infuriating human smirk on his face. You think you've won? Velik growled, his voice filled with barely restrained fury. You think a few tricks make you the masters of the galaxy? Rains chuckled. I don't think we've won, he said. I know we have. Velik's claws dug into the table. We still have fleets across the galaxy, we still. Oh, you mean the fleets that no longer have functional navigation? Rains cut in, amusement in his voice. Yeah, we kind of scrambled your FTL network. Your admirals are either stranded or spinning in circles trying to figure out what went wrong. The room froze, scrambled, the entire FTL network. That was impossible. No species, not even the Council's most advanced researchers, could do that. It would take centuries of careful hacking, fleets of AI specialists working tirelessly. Unless, of course, you were human. You underestimated us, Rains continued. You thought we'd fight like you, grand fleets, long campaigns, honorable engagements. But that's the thing about humanity. You gave us rules, and we ignored them. VC's breath came in shallow bursts. This wasn't just a war. This was a coup, and the humans had executed it perfectly. A cold voice cut through the murmurs. What do you want? It came from an elder of the Vorn Dominion, her eyes narrowed. Rains leaned forward, resting his chin on one hand. Oh, it's simple, really. You guys are done. No more council, no more ruling over the galaxy like some ancient gods. Effective immediately, humanity is in charge. Gasps filled the chamber. You cannot be serious, another alien sputtered. USHH, Rains held up a finger mockingly. I'm talking. The sheer disrespect made Vake's blood boil. You have two choices, Rains continued. One, you surrender, step down peacefully, and let humanity take the reins. In return, we don't completely destroy your way of life. You get to exist under new management. A pause. Option 2, Rains grinned, showing just enough teeth to make it unsettling. We turn this into a cleanup operation. And trust me, you really don't want to see what happens when humans stop being nice. The room fell into stunned silence. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was faced with an ultimatum. Not from another ancient empire, not from a rising power that could be crushed before it became a threat, but from the very species they had dismissed as nothing more than savages. And now those savages ruled the stars. It was over, but humanity wasn't done yet. A deep thrum reverberated through the chamber, shaking the walls. It wasn't just the capital world that had fallen. Human ships were descending from orbit, landing. The room's doors hissed open, and for the first time in history, human boots stepped onto the sacred ground of the Galactic Council. Armed soldiers in sleek black combat armor moved in with terrifying precision, their weapons held at the ready but not raised. They didn't need to. The fear alone was enough to paralyze every being in the room. At their center walked Captain Rains, but this time he wasn't a voice on a screen. He was here in the flesh. Vake had spent his life looking down on lesser species, but as Rains approached, he felt something he had never experienced before: instinctive primal fear. Humans weren't the largest, strongest, or most advanced species in the galaxy, but their presence, the sheer weight of their existence, was undeniable. Rains stopped in front of Vake, meeting his gaze with unsettling amusement. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Vake forced himself to stand. Even in defeat, he was still the Grand Chancellor of the Council. You've won," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Why come here yourself?" Rains smirked. "Because I wanted to see the moment the galaxy changed." He swept his gaze over the chamber. "You lot had a good run, centuries of control, but you got complacent. You thought your old ways would last forever." He took a step closer. "You never expected us." Felix clenched his fists. "What now?" Rains tilted his head. Now we rebuild. You get to play nice under human leadership, and in return we don't wipe your species off the map." A ripple of unease spread through the room. They knew he wasn't bluffing. You can't possibly rule the entire galaxy," one of the elders muttered, almost as if trying to convince themselves. "It's too vast, too complex." Rains chuckled. "That's the thing, we're really good at adapting, and unlike you, we don't need centuries to make decisions. We'll have this place running smoother than you ever did." He turned back to Vake. "Speaking of which, I think you'll like your new job." Vake stiffened. "Job?" "Oh, don't look so surprised," Rains said, patting him on the shoulder like an old friend. "You're going to help us manage this transition. Call it repayment for all those years you spent treating the rest of the galaxy like dirt." Velik's mandibles tightened. "You mean serve under you?" "Exactly," Rains grinned. The humiliation was unbearable, but what choice did he have? The Council was finished, and humanity had won. The weight of humanity's victory pressed down on Vake like a planetary gravity well. He had spent his entire existence at the pinnacle of power, commanding fleets, dictating the fate of entire civilizations with a mere word. Now he was nothing more than a servant to a species the Council had dismissed as reckless, primitive upstarts. Rains let the silence hang for a moment before clapping his hands together. "All right then, now that we're all on the same page, let's talk about what comes next." A shiver of unease rippled through the room. The alien leaders had no illusions left. Humanity owned them now. Rains gestured to his soldiers, who moved with disciplined efficiency, unfurling holographic displays in the center of the chamber. "Step 1, the Council as you know it is officially dissolved. No more bureaucratic nonsense, no more higher species hoarding power." One of the elders, an aged Vorn with trembling tendrils, dared to speak. "And who governs now?" Rains grinned. "Us." Murmurs of despair filled the chamber. Some of the older, more stubborn counselors couldn't comprehend it. A Jodi noble's voice wavered as he asked, "And what of our people? What becomes of them?" Rains tilted his head. "That depends entirely on you." Felix's throat tightened. He had studied war. He had studied conquest. He knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't just a change in power, this was a purge. The humans didn't just want to rule the galaxy, they wanted to reshape it. Rains leaned forward, resting his hands on the Council's grand table. "See, you guys spent centuries treating the other species like lesser beings, enforcing your rules, deciding who got to rise and who stayed in the dirt." His gaze sharpened. "That ends today." The chamber fell deathly silent. "The way I see it, you have two options," Rains continued, his tone casual but filled with cold finality. "Option 1, you help us. You use your knowledge, your influence to make this transition smooth. In return, you get to keep your comfortable little lives.